Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash is the latest and greatest entry into the Senran Kagura series. Much like Bon Appetit, it's a spin-off of the hack and slash games. Instead of a rhythm game, this time they've gone and made a third-person shooter, and a fine one if I do say so myself. However, unlike the other shooters, there's a twist. No bullets, instead all the girls fight using water guns. The water guns come in a variety, grenade launchers with water bombs, revolvers, Gatling guns and shotguns, etc, but we'll cover all this later. In my opinion, this game is super fun. The core gameplay doesn't take itself too seriously and it plays to the series' core strengths, which is the appeal of anime tits and ass, which is fantastic. That is such a shit joke. And it's nice to see the series continue to evolve and not churn out the same game over and over again. Dynasty Warriors. As a disclaimer, all footage in this video will be from the Japanese version, which is now 1.09, which is what the Western version will release on, and I will be avoiding spoilers as much as I can. The core of gameplay is obviously shooting basic bitches with water, but there's so much more to this game. Unlike many third-person shooters of late, there is no cover system in this game, opting for fast-paced and skill-based gameplay. And matches and battles in this game are relatively short, which in turn does make the gameplay segments of the story relatively short too. The speed of these matches is down to one of the coolest features in the game, that being the jetpack. However, before we get too ahead of ourselves, I'd like to mention another unusual convention of this game. All firing is lock-on as default, which I believe is related to the fact the game is relatively fast, and also because the game is currently PS4 only, which cannot provide the accuracy of a keyboard and mouse. However, the game does offer you the option of manual aiming, but it's really not worth it for the majority of weapons. Also, I think the reason for lock-on is because of the water guns, which have slower bullet speed compared to other shooters. Meaning, with slower bullet speed, you have to guess where players are moving to all the time, but with the lock-on feature, then it keeps the game more in line with other shooters. I do say more in line very, very loosely here, by the way. Anyway, where were we? Yes, jetpacks. The jetpack has two functions. One, reaching great heights, and two, getting from A to B on the ground faster. The jetpack uses the same water that you use for your weapons, meaning you have to reload once you've used the pack too much. Now, the jetpack functions and animations are dependent on the weapon you're using. All weapons allow you to dash forward, reaching the combat faster. However, the other function of reaching great heights does change depending on the weapon. The revolver, dual pistols, and the spray gun only allow you to do a series of smaller jumps into the air, while the other weapons allow you to stay continuously in the air, which, when using the rocket launcher, is fucking mental. So, as I just described earlier, there are 10 different weapons, all of which feature two different firing modes, which can be changed on the fly, such as the grenade launcher, aka the most overpowered shit ever, launches a water bomb in a short distance. However, the bomb can bounce, which means it's also pretty effective at medium to long range. The alternate fire changes the bomb to explode on contact with anything, and does, I believe, slightly more damage. The rocket launcher, as you would expect, does massive damage, massive area of effect damage, and pretty much like playing as a soldier in Team Fortress 2 in a way. Alternate fire allows 3 homing rockets at the price of each rocket only doing 1/5 of the damage of a normal rocket, which, in my opinion, is so not worth it. The revolver fires powerful single shots, but the cost of a very slow fire rate. Alternate fire unloads the whole magazine with one press of the trigger. All the guns have their strengths and weaknesses, some of which can be countered with careful and strategic card selection. I've seen, as well as tried, some interesting tactics in this game. You can even try things like hit and run tactics using certain weapons like the dual pistols, in combination with good skill card selection too. Another feature of this game is all characters have a melee attack. All melee attacks have relatively the same properties, with roughly the same sized hitboxes and charge up times and attack speed. So Ikaruga will interestingly have a really slow melee attack compared to previous games where she was one of the fastest. One final feature is this. Friendly fire is something in this game. However, there is a benefit to this. When you soak up enough water from allied fire, you get this funny little animation of the girl and you gain unlimited water for a limited amount of time. And this funky music to go with it is quite a common tactic for people to use in co-op survival. As soon as the round starts, everyone just shoots at each other, and then because everyone's using a Gatling gun, you get unlimited ammo, and then you rinse through it. So, you know, there you go. I just gave you a nice little tactic to play co-op survival. There are two other features of this game. When players take too much damage, it does the classic Senran feature of clothes ripping, provided your character has rippable clothes. However, you gain a shield for a couple of seconds, which gives players the chance to regain their bearings and gives them the chance to fight back, which once again is linked to the fast pace of the game. The shield activates when you take a certain amount of damage. Only a direct shot from a sniper can one-hit kill people. Now, if you think that's imbalanced with the lock-on feature, well, the sniper rifle is an interesting case in this game. The sniper rifle is actually really inaccurate, which is the opposite of nearly every other game except Hyperion snipers in Borderlands 2. However, the sniper does get the bonus feature of the fact it can pierce multiple bitches at once, if you know what I mean. It's a very high risk reward weapon. And the final feature of the core gameplay are squirmy finishers. Obviously, no Senran game would be complete without stripping enemies' clothes. When someone's defeated, a circle will appear around them until the time it takes for them to respawn. During this time, you can go up to them and perform a squirmy finisher, where you constantly fire water at them, at either their head, tits or ass. Aiming for the tits or ass will break that part of their bikini off and they'll be exposed. The animation and position of the character depends on what weapon the defeated character was using, with each of the weapons providing a different finisher. Now, unlike the previous games, this has a purpose as it gives cooldown to your card skills. Disappointingly, when you initiate the squirmy finishers, the defeated character will revert back to the default white bikini and will remove all accessories for this, which is slightly annoying. I can understand doing this for full outfits like dresses, but bikinis? Really? I presume it's just the way the game's designed, but this is really disappointing in my opinion, that all the customizations change, especially as in Estival Versus. They all kept them, except for when you had the bikinis, or the towel, or whatever the other one was. Now, one of the main gameplay features are skill cards and pet cards, which are the replacement for shinobi transformations, as it were. As you've probably seen from the gameplay, pretty much everywhere, in the bottom left, there are 3 cards, each with their own saucy picture of a character from the game, or one of the many sidekicks from across the series. In each match you get to pick 9 cards in total, 3 pet cards and 6 skill cards, but only 3 of them will be available at one time. Each card has its own stats, including cost, cooldown, area of effect, duration, etc, etc. For skill cards, each character is linked to a specific ability. These abilities can be offensive or supportive. Offensive ones have abilities such as Yumi's, which launches ice projectiles at enemies, or Miyabi's, which makes a void of black energy around the character, much like one of her ninpos in Estival Versus. Supportive cards are a bit of a broader category. It has cards that can buff allies during each match, including gun damage, melee damage, faster reloads, etc, etc, or debuff enemies in the same manner. And there are other cards such as Minori's, which heal everyone, or Ryoki's, which creates a shield. Each character has multiple cards and have ones of varying rarity, which are obviously better. However, some characters have different versions, such as Kafaru. Kafaru's skill card decreases reload times, but you get a choice. Some can buff just you for an extended amount of time, or there are some that can buff your whole team instead at the cost of reduced time, which is quite a nice trade-off, whether or not you want to go solo or you want to be a team player. Pet cards, on the other hand, have longer lasting effects and provide support for you in certain ways, and can be activated at any time, including when you're in the air or knocked down. Pets take the form of a floating character next to you in the game, such as Kafaru's dolphin, which will fire at enemies for you, and Child Kagura, which will give you a shield. At the end of each game, you are rewarded with packs of cards, which can be of any rarity. If you gain a duplicate card, they go into your inventory for you to use. With these duplicate cards, you can use them to power up characters, increasing their health, or you can use it to power up weapons or other skill cards themselves. For weapons, it increases their damage, and for every 2 levels, the guns will change what they look like. And when they reach level 10, they gain the ability to regenerate water very slowly. Skill cards, when they get upgraded, they get higher damage on offensive cards, and supportive cards get stronger in other ways, such as Minori's cards will recover more health, or Ryoki's shields will stay active for longer. This game, unlike the previous spin-off, does contain more than one mode. So there's story mode, which plays out much like Shinobi Versus, with each of the 4 schools having their own 10-stage stories, which all play out relatively the same. I mean, they have the same structure in terms of how the stages play out. So one of the stages will be versus one superpowered character, the 3 new characters and a army. One stage involves you putting out some fires, for some reason. And the second to last stage is versus one of the other schools. And the last stage is unique for Gessen and Hebijo schools, but Hanzo and Crimson Scod have basically the same last stage, which I can't and won't explain because it will spoil it, but the last stages are all really fun. Each stage you get multiple choice of characters with the 4 school stories, giving you 5 to pick each time, which is quite nice I think. Personally, there's some characters I don't care about, I'm not too fond of, so if you don't want to play as them, you don't have to. One thing to note is Ayame is now officially part of the Hanzo school and is involved in their story. So because there's 6 characters in that school, their lineup changes stage to stage and won't let you play as one of the girls for that stage. In addition to the 4 school stories, there are 2 additional stories, one of which is just one stage and is the final boss fight, but the other story is quite long and does change the team you play as stage to stage. Interestingly, story mode this time has characters speak mid-battle like Shinobi Girl's Heart, which is unlike the previous games, which story was exclusively told before and after stages. And yes, the game has that too, with the classic Marvelous method of storytelling, with the characters standing around in part of the upcoming stage, talking and pulling some daft, but funny, over-the-top expressions while they'll say what's going on. And to be honest, it's probably the best method for them to tell the main points of the story during the fast-paced action. And yes, the talking during mid-stage is fucking annoying for the non-Japanese speakers, but thankfully, most of the dialogue during that time isn't vital to the plot. One of the other 2 modes is Paradise Episodes, which are this game's replacement for Shinobi Girl's Heart. This time they usually feature more than one character, and fights aren't equal throughout. For example, there's one story that features Kafuru, Hibari and Murasaki, and you play as all 3 throughout the 5-part story. But the enemies you fight can either just be one character on their own, or a duo of characters. So unlike Estival Versus, which all of them had the same structure of a 1v1 fight, then you fight 2 characters, then you fight 1 again, then you fight 3, and then finally it's 1v1 again. So there's no set structure to these stories. There are 12 of these Paradise episodes, so disappointingly not everyone is featured as a protagonist or an antagonist of those stories, so don't get too excited for individual stories too much. Story mode and Paradise episodes are playable on 3 difficulties, giving higher and better rewards for medium and hard difficulty. The final stage of all stories also reward coins, which I'll explain in a later section. However, you get 1 for each difficulty, so you can replay these on the other 2 difficulties and get another 2 coins. However, one thing to note about these 2 modes are they are elimination style battles, where they finish when all opposing members are dead. However, your team gets multiple lives. And finally, the last single player mode, V-Road Challenges. These are death matches against specific teams of characters which last 3 minutes each. There are 4 V-Road challenges with 5 stages each. You have to complete all 5 stages to unlock the next challenge. Unfortunately, you cannot change the difficulty of these. However, the difficulty does ramp up quite significantly on the last 2 challenges. This mode has to be completed if you would like to unlock true Kagura for play in all modes. Another observation about this is Story Mode and Paradise episodes, all characters wield their default weapons. You know, the ones shown in the character portraits like on screen now. But in V-Road challenges they have different weapons, meaning you get to see different squirmy finishes for them if you wish. Multiplayer is basically what you'd expect from a Senran game. However, I'm kind of disappointed they didn't embrace the dumbness of the series and add over-the-top game modes like, say, Time Splitters 2. Interestingly, there was a bunch of problems with people disconnecting mid-game, so in a patch, which will be part of the Western versions, they added that AI will take over if said person quits, which I thought was, pretty funny. So competitive multiplayer has 4 modes, of which all are team-based, so no free-for-all this time round, which might annoy some people. Anyway, Team Deathmatch plays exactly the same as every other game. You kill bitches and you gain points, basically. The second game type is a variation of Team Deathmatch, but only squirmy finishers count as points. Monomation is a base capture or conquest, or whatever the proper name for it is. You capture towers and gain points, and the first team to reach the point limit wins. Unlike Estival Versus, you don't actually have to destroy the tower to capture it here. You only have to stand next to it in order to capture. Every second a tower remains captured adds a point, so they've changed the game mode around a little bit for this game. Capture the flag with a bra on top of it. It's really basic. Do you need me to explain this? You go to the enemy's starting location and try to bring their flag back to your own base. The flag bearer can't use any skill cards during this time. However, they can still initiate squirmy finishes. So if you're in a pinch, just do that, and then your allies can come over and help you. Co-op survival. Much like in Estival Versus, the game mode requires a team of you to defend a bunch of objectives from waves of enemies. Each round is 5 waves, which will all end really quickly, and you gain some quite neat rewards from it. Loads of cash, cards, gold coins. In total there are 50 waves. When each round ends, it gives players the chance to change characters and or equipment, as well as handing you the reward from the round. Some of the rewards are gold coins mentioned earlier, and it's probably the most effective way of grinding these, as well as cash. All modes, including co-op, can be played with bots, however they can only use rank 1 weapons, unlike allies in single player. One massive bugbear with multiplayer is that it's quite unbalanced. It doesn't limit what level everyone's character or gear is, so some players can have maxed out equipment, cards and whatever, but they can be playing with people using the stock equipment as it were, which is pretty stupid if you ask me. There is a ranking system in the multiplayer games to separate people of higher ranks, but still. Customization remains in the game with the ability to add accessories to characters anywhere, much like in the previous games and Valkyrie Drive. However, there is now a limit of 10, but some accessories take up more than 1 slot, meaning if you take 5 items with 2 slots each, you can only have that amount. One massive improvement is lingerie, which they've done away with this stupidly long list with all the styles and then the recolours halfway down the list. This time, all styles are in one list, and the designs and recolours have their own list, making it a hell of a lot easier. And they've included some new ones, like here. Saucy. The amount of costumes, accessories and hair has been increased since the last game. Not by much though, from what I remember, but there's still quite a lot of variety in the game. One thing they haven't improved is colour options. There's still only 5 colour choices for everything still. I'm surprised they haven't gone down the Sims 3 route of letting you customise everything. I mean, it can't be out of their capabilities to do this, and it's just silly really. Quite often you will come across people with exactly the same customisations with you, which is slightly annoying. One other improvement is, strangely, the kissing minigame, which is pretty cringy but also funny. Now, certain characters behave differently when molested, let's say, like Murakumo, who will now try to shield her face, and Ryona, who will enjoy it, and this fucking animation right here. Jesus. Anyway, The shop got a slight upgrade as well. There's no longer lingerie lottery, because this is a game where wearing a bikini is more preferable. Anyway, since the last game where Ayame was initially a 2D drawing and then got updated to a proper 3D model, the devs have decided that this means you can now change the shopkeeper to any of the girls you've unlocked in the game. However, I believe there's a glitch that when you select Asuka and then leave the shop, the game doesn't remember and it will change her back, but I can't remember if that's a glitch or it's just happened to me a couple of times. Yeah, so that's a nice change. So if you don't like Ayame, which shouldn't be anybody, you can change her for a free cost, which is actually one of the options in the shop now. Anyway, in the shop you can buy more card packs, which there are several varieties which offer different cards, which some of them are based on the schools, meaning you only get Hanzo cards from their pack, etc, etc. The other option is to buy singular cards using gold coins mentioned several times in this review. This gives you a guaranteed new card unless you have all of them in a certain rarity. Obviously, super rare cards cost more than just rare cards. Because of the removal of lingerie lotto, the microtransactions which are featured on the PlayStation Store have moved to buying the gold coins instead. In addition to this, a shop is obviously where you can buy more hair options, more costumes, voice lines, music, and much, much more, just like in the previous games. I think the game is really fun. It offers it in quite reasonable chunks. It's probably not a game anyone will be able to play for hours upon hours in a row, mainly because you'd need a wank. But jokes aside, the pacing of the game is great, it's fast, it's frantic. I just don't know if it's enough to keep somebody entertained for, 6 hours straight, but it is certainly a lot of fun. The main disappointment for me is the lack of modes in multiplayer, or just a genuine arcade mode. I do genuinely believe they should have added a free-for-all mode and just some dumber modes to go in there, like players with less kills are smaller and players with more kills are bigger targets. I know that's ripped from Time Splitters, but that's just an example. They could really embrace the dumb. I mean, you're firing water guns at people and their clothes fall off. The unbalancing in multiplayer might be an issue to some players as well, but in my opinion, I think the game offers the tools to counteract that with the shield mechanics, and also the fact the games are quite short too. I can't imagine anyone getting too angry over this game. I hope you've enjoyed this review as much as I hope you enjoy playing the game. Thank you very much for watching if you managed to reach this point. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at the handle on screen or in the link below. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.